Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Guatemala, police have arrested and indicted 18 ex-military leaders on charges of committing crimes against humanity during the decades-long U.S.-backed dirty war against Guatemala's indigenous communities. The ex-military leaders face charges of ordering massacres and forced disappearances, which led to more than 250,000 deaths. Many of the arrested former military leaders were backed by the United States, including Manuel Benedicto Lucas Garcia, a former Army chief of staff and the brother of ex-President Romeo Lucas. Garcia had worked closely with U.S. military officials to develop a system of warfare in the highlands against Guatemala's indigenous Mayan communities, which involved decapitating and crucifying people. Prosecutors also moved to have the immunity lifted for Edgar Justino Ovalle Maldonado, an ex-military leader who's now the right-hand man of incoming President Jimmy Morales. The arrest comes 6 months after massive popular uprisings against a corruption scandal ousted the now-jailed former President Otto Perez Molina, who was also formerly a U.S.-backed military leader during the country's dirty wars. The arrests come one day after acting President Alejandro Maldonado made a surprise announcement. He's slashing the minimum wage for the manufacturing industry in certain areas. Video of the announcement shows acting President Maldonado appearing to break down in the face of opposition, waving his arms and shouting at protesters, calling them Leninists and bums. And a plane filled with Guatemalans who've been deported from the United States just arrived in Guatemala City as the U.S. government carries out a national campaign of raids targeting families who fled to the U.S. seeking asylum. One of the deported asylum seekers, Marvin Solis, said he felt his rights had been violated.
Like the saying goes, one does harm and another bears the blame. Some people truly deserve an opportunity over there, and they are carrying out raids, and with that, they end up violating people's rights.
TransCanada Corporation has sued the U.S. government over its rejection of the Keystone XL pipeline. On Wednesday, it filed a lawsuit in U.S. federal court alleging President Obama's rejection of the pipeline exceeded his power under the U.S. Constitution. TransCanada also filed legal action under NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, claiming the pipeline permit denial was, quote, arbitrary and unjustified. It's seeking $15 billion as part of its NAFTA claim. President Obama rejected the cross-border crude oil pipeline in November after years of review and one of the most vocal grassroots campaigns this country has seen in decades. We'll have more on the story with Lori Wallach of Public Citizen after headlines. Meanwhile, in California, Governor Jerry Brown's declared a state of emergency in a Los Angeles neighborhood where an uncontrollable methane gas leak has spewed more than 150 million pounds of methane into the atmosphere. The declaration comes 10 weeks after the leak was detected. Environmental advocates are calling it the worst environmental disaster since the BP oil spill. Methane's a powerful greenhouse gas that accelerates global warming. The company responsible, Southern California Gas Company, says it could take 3 to 4 months to stop the leak. To hear more about this story, go to democracynow.org to see our interview with Erin Brockovich. In Texas, State Trooper Brian Encinia has been indicted on perjury charges for lying about the traffic stop of Sandra Bland, the African-American woman who was found hanged in her jail cell 3 days after Encinia arrested her in July for allegedly failing to signal a lane change. Authorities say Bland committed suicide, a claim her family rejects. On Wednesday, a grand jury indicted Encinia, saying they didn't believe his written statement that he had removed Bland from the vehicle in order to conduct a safer traffic investigation. Dash cam footage of the arrest shows Encinia dragging Sandra Bland out of her car and threatening to, quote, light her up. Sandra Bland can later be heard on video accusing the police officer of slamming her head into the ground. She said she had epilepsy, to which Trooper Encinia replies, good. The perjury charge against Encinia is a Class A misdemeanor that carries a possible penalty of 1 year in jail and a $4,000 fine. Following the grand jury announcement, protesters condemned the grand jury for only indicting Encinia on perjury and not the more serious charges of assault.
To give him a slap on the wrist and give him a perjury is not a surprise to us, but it is also a hurt and a slap in the face of Sandra Bland's family.
Last month, the grand jury declined to indict jailhouse officers in Bland's death. Her family has filed a wrongful death suit. To see our interview with them, go to democracynow.org. In China, trading was halted for the day for the second time this week after stocks plunged 7% in less than half an hour. It was China's shortest trading day in 25 years. This comes as oil prices plunged to the lowest levels in more than a decade. A new report by the World Bank warns the global economy risks facing a, quote, perfect storm in 2016, renewing fears about a new global financial crisis. In Libya, at least 47 people have died after a truck bomb exploded outside a police training center in the western city of Zliten. At least 100 more people were wounded in the blast at the Al Jafal training camp, which had served as a military base during the rule of ousted Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. Afghan officials say a U.S. drone strike killed at least 5 people Saturday in the eastern province of Kunar. This comes as the U.S. military has disclosed the name of the Army Special Forces soldier who was killed in Helmand province earlier this week. 30-year-old Matthew McClintock of Albuquerque, New Mexico, was killed Tuesday during a U.S.-Afghan operation in the city of Marja. McClintock is the first U.S. soldier to die in Afghanistan in 2016. He leaves behind a wife and infant son. In Yemen, Human Rights Watch is accusing the U.S.-backed Saudi-led coalition forces of committing war crimes after the forces dropped cluster bombs on residential neighborhoods of the capital Sana'a Wednesday. The United States has reportedly sold internationally banned cluster bombs to Saudi Arabia, which are now being used in Yemen as part of the series of billion-dollar arms deals between the U.S. and the Saudis in 2015. Meanwhile, Iran is accusing Saudi Arabia of attacking the Iranian embassy in Yemen amidst escalating tensions between the two countries following Saudi Arabia's execution of Shiite cleric Sheikh Nimr al-Nimr. The cleric was executed Saturday, along with 46 others in Saudi Arabia's largest mass execution in decades. Many of those killed were beheaded. Back in the United States, Alabama's Chief Justice Roy Moore has drawn criticism after insisting that state probate judges must refuse to order same-sex marriage licenses despite the U.S. Supreme Court decision legalizing marriage equality more than 6 months ago. On Wednesday, Moore said until the Alabama Supreme Court rules on the Supreme Court decision, the state judges remain bound by an earlier Alabama court order prohibiting same-sex marriage. But if the state judges follow that directive rather than the Supreme Court decision, they could be held in contempt of court. Currently, the majority of Alabama's judges are issuing marriage licenses to all couples, regardless of sexual orientation, although judges in at least 9 counties have shut down marriage license operations entirely in order to avoid the Supreme Court's ruling. In New York, 8 medical marijuana dispensaries are opening across the state today. This comes after New York Governor Andrew Cuomo signed legislation in 2014 legalizing medical marijuana. Nearly half of all U.S. states now allow patients to use marijuana for medicinal purposes. In Michigan, protesters are increasing demands for Governor Rick Snyder's arrest following the announcement that federal prosecutors have opened an investigation into lead contamination in the drinking water of Flint, which causes permanent health impacts, including memory loss and developmental impairment. The contamination began after an unelected emergency manager appointed by Governor Snyder switched Flint's water source to the long-polluted Flint River in a bid to save money. Researchers at Virginia Tech who've been testing Flint water say the city could have corrected the problem by better treating the water at a cost of as little as $100 a day. Michigan Governor Rick Snyder declared a state of emergency for Flint Wednesday after learning of the federal probe. Many are now calling for criminal action against Snyder himself, accusing him of knowing about the problem far earlier and refusing to take action. Newly released emails show Snyder's chief of staff, Dennis Muchmore, alerted Governor Snyder of the contamination problem more than 6 months ago, saying Flint residents are, quote, concerned and rightfully so about the lead level studies they're receiving. These folks are scared and worried about the health impacts, and they're basically getting blown off by us. As a state, we're just not sympathizing with their plight, Muchmore wrote to the governor. On Wednesday, celebrity singer Cher joined the chorus of people calling for Snyder's arrest to her nearly more than 3 million followers, tweeting, quote, "Gov of Michigan is a murderer. #jail for Rick." In Vermont, the city of Burlington is preparing for potential chaos at a rally for presidential candidate Donald Trump tonight after Trump gave away more than 20,000 free tickets for a venue that holds only 1,400 people. Burlington Police Chief Brandon Del Pozo said, quote, "If Fish was holding a free concert at the Flynn and gave away 20,000 free tickets, we would cancel the event out of public safety concerns. We are committed to accommodating the campaign because political speech is the very essence of the First Amendment," he said. And in Oregon, the Northern Paiute tribe has condemned the ongoing occupation of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge by white right-wing militia members. On Saturday, a self-styled right-wing anti-government militia calling itself the Citizens for Constitutional Freedom took over the wildlife refuge in support of 2 ranchers sentenced to prison for setting fires that burned federal land. Leaders of the occupation include Amen and Ryan Bundy, the sons of the Nevada rancher Cliven Bundy, who refused to pay decades' worth of cattle grazing fees, prompting a standoff with federal rangers in 2014 in Nevada. The militia has called for the federal land in Oregon to be, quote, returned to them. But leaders of the Northern Paiute tribe said if the land should be returned to anyone, it should be returned to the tribe. The tribe has rights to the land under a treaty signed by the U.S. government more than a century ago. On Wednesday, tribal council member Jarvis Kennedy contrasted the federal government's treatment of the armed militia members with the violent forced removal of the Northern Paiute more than a century earlier.
My name is Jarvis Kennedy, Burns Paiute tribal councilman. I got a question for the world out there, because all the eyes are on this little tribe here. What if it was a bunch of natives that went out there and overtook that, or any federal land? We weren't removed. We were killed and ran off our land. We marched in the snow out there. Hundreds of miles to forts. When they finally let us go, we didn't have no place to go. Our land was already taken. They gave us 10 acres at the city dump. Think about that.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.